Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr and also frequently Kevin Noon. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's good. This is my favorite week of the college football playoff rankings release, where everyone is emotionally invested in some stupid college basketball game, but only because they desperately want it to end. It's like, who are you rooting for? Just triple zeros, man. I'm rooting for triple zeros and different numbers in the two teams' point columns. That is my big emotional investment tonight. And Tony, it finally happened. Way to go, everyone.
I'm I'm rooting for refs running close to their allotted airport time, and they've got to catch a flight. Kevin, how's it going?
It's going great. I was very excited to get to watch a little college basketball action, but we're here to talk some football, and I'm excited about that as well. And let's see those rankings because nothing moves product more than talking about rankings.
And boy, are we going to talk about him. I did like what I think Ryan Day today said, that he doesn't talk about the rankings to the team. Like, why would he talk about it last week? Because it doesn't mean anything else, anything this week. And as a content creator, I was like, that's offensive, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not wrong. But I am interested. I think for me, I just want to see. We're going to start seeing the head to head stuff really play out, and Michigan State we know is going to drop. Can they drop below Michigan? And then Tom, as you said before the show, what's going to happen with Penn State and Auburn? So we're going to see. He's going to have to pick sides here, and it might have ripple effects for Ohio State and Oregon as well.
Well, yeah, I think first of all, if they're going from the bottom up this week, 25 up, watch where Arkansas is, because where Arkansas is going to be your tell this week on exactly where they want to put Auburn and how they're going to justify having Auburn over Penn State when both are 6-3, both have wins over presumably two ranked teams in this week's poll, and one of Penn State's ranked wins is over Auburn. So I guess we'll find out exactly how married the committee is to head-to-head wins. I suspect Texas A&M, which is one of Auburn's wins, is going to get shot way up the rankings, which will help justify it, and Arkansas will come back into the rankings because Arkansas just beat Mississippi State, so I'm guessing Arkansas will come back in the rankings at like 18 or 19 or something like that to kind of buoy the Auburn case back up the up. But you've got Purdue 6-3. Purdue's got some good wins, two ranked top 5 wins at the time, and they're still ranked wins. You've got Penn State, and then you've got Auburn, and I have this sneaking suspicion I know which of those three teams is going to be ranked the highest.
What if we see Iowa just drop them out of the top 25 entirely because of the 17-12 win at Northwestern, and they go from 2 to unranked in the span of like 2 weeks? The college football show, the reveal is going to get started here in 3 minutes. We will, of course, watch along with you and react with you and share some thoughts. Kevin, what are you looking forward to seeing tonight?
I'm looking forward to see head to head, as you guys have talked about. We saw how important that was in the week 1 rankings. Things are going to become a little bit more complicated here. I want to see if and how they break up that SEC clump in the teens that they had. The run from like 13 to 18 that was BYU and the rest of the SEC at that point. I want to see what's there. I want to see if I just want to see who's kind of at the bottom. I want to see if there was enough upset people about UTSA. I mean, I know that their best win was only Illinois, but as things keep shifting, does that get a little bit of a bounce? Who kind of sneaks in the bottom of the poll? I think that's going to be important. I don't think in week 2 it's as important as it is later, but we have talked about that the committee knows what they're doing, and if they're trying to prop up somebody always seems to kind of float in there at the end.
I do like how they say they start from a blank sheet every time, which allows them to kind of we've never set precedents. There's no such thing as precedent. It's a new ranking every week. So just because we liked head to head one week doesn't mean we're going to like it the next week, or because we didn't like it one week doesn't mean we won't love it the next. And it's a really good get out of free jail card. Or it's like cornerbacks need to have no memories, committees need to have no memories in this. And it's like, but last week you said that this was because you wanted this, and then you like this, and Gary Barta will be, of course, be like, well, that That's last week. We had a brand new sheet of paper this week. And of course, I will jump off of here and jump onto the teleconference. That starts around 9:45. I pushed back because the show has been pushed back by about 20 minutes. If so, guys, you are going to have to fill and fill and fill and just talk to each other about stuff. Of course, we can answer plenty of questions. Tom, I worry that me not being on the show for even longer than planned might doom things.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we've proven one thing over the years is that you are clearly the only thing that holds any of this together. And by anything, I mean like, the universe. Not just this podcast, not just the Ohio State football media sphere, not just college football, but the entire universe is held together by one man. Fortunately, he's right in the middle. If he was on one side, the podcast would be lopsided. It would be like that. And fortunately, that's why he has to be in the middle. So yeah, but we will do our very best to soldier on through. I do like the comments about Tony's blue blocker glasses. I don't think those are actually blue blocker glasses. Did you buy those off cable TV? I suspect that they are just regular glasses.
No, I got them like everybody else does. I met a guy in a parking lot, and I picked a pair of glasses out of a trunk. Like
as one does.
I was going to say you can get them at the Love's Travel Center.
It's where I get my speakers too.
Jordan Kapler, my goodness, I got to tell you, first of all, how dare you, sir? And second of all, now I have to come up with whatever my equivalent of the Cincinnati guy with the Gary Farta poster at game day is. Got to come up with some kind of Jordan Kapler, Gary Farta play. So now I've got to do that. So now it's just Kevin. Kevin's just going to have to do the show by himself while Tony and I are gone.
Hold on. Okay, guys. No, I'm not ready. I'm not quite ready for that.
Big Me Weekly.
No. I'm going to have to sit there and be typing these rankings in on graphics and stuff. But I don't want you to run away with all the glory at that point. So people are just going to get to see me typing.
DK is wondering what the circle of light is on you. That is a ring light on Tony's computer that you just see reflected in his glasses. So he does not, in fact, have a sniper pointing anything at him, as far as I know. I mean, I guess
it's only for high value targets.
Like I've got extra lights around, but if I turn it off, I'm like, come on. It's like, I need to have it on so that people can see who's talking here and who is in the middle and who is keeping everything together with the lightness. And it's a figurative light. It's a literal light. It's an all encompassing light that I bring to the show. And I know people appreciate that. I'm really concerned that this teleconference is going to be way late because we are now 20 minutes in and not a single thing has been revealed. So,
but it's it's going to be a shorter show because
definitely
they took a break and now they got to run like a 4-minute intro because 3 guys in Bristol worked really hard on putting it together. So you got to do that, and then they're going to have about 6 minutes to push all of this in, and like 4 minutes of it's going to be them tickling each other. So it's it's just going to be, here's your list. Good night.
When does the tickling start?
T minus, and by T I mean tickle, 3 minutes.
I know, we're just waiting. This is the best.
Well, we got 186 online with us, and that number keeps growing. So at least
Tom,
at least we're not alone.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, my strength. Yeah, Jordan says my strength of schedule isn't great right now, which, I mean, it's tough but fair. I mean, these I can only play the people who are in front of me, and you see the people who are in front of me right now. So there's only so much I can do.
Your Arkansas is number 25, Tom.
UTSA.
Arkansas is number 25. Hey, marvel as I predict the future. If you're just joining me, before we started, I said, hey, take note of where Arkansas is, because if Arkansas is ranked, or depending on where Arkansas is, that's going to be what the committee uses to prop up Auburn, to give Auburn a second-ranked win, so then they can keep Auburn over other Big Ten teams that also are 6-3 with 2 ranked wins, such as Penn State and Purdue. Penn State, of course, with a head-to-head win over Auburn. So I guess we'll find out exactly how important head-to-head is this week.
Auburn at 17, Purdue at 19. I have not seen Penn State yet. They better
have not seen Penn State yet. That's going to be real interesting. If Penn State is ahead of Auburn, I will actually believe for once that they do in fact tear up the rankings and do this from scratch every week.
and Badgers at 18, Iowa at 20. So it's you got some Big Ten in there at 18, 19, and 20.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn drops 4 spots. NC State goes up 3 spots. Purdue jumps up from non-ranked, and Iowa goes up 2 spots. There is no Penn State in the 11 through 15, so they're not going to be in there, are they? They're not top 10, right?
Oh, geez, I'm going as fast as I can with this damn list.
Darn list. Keep it family friendly.
I know.
Yeah. Penn State's. Let's see. Penn State last week they won at Maryland, so I don't think they're going to rocket up the rankings 15 spots. I think they just. I wonder if that's an Illinois thing. The Illinois game held them back enough because their other losses are at Iowa with no Sean Clifford. They were way ahead, and obviously we're going to win that game if Sean Clifford didn't get hurt. And then on the road at Ohio State, gave Ohio State an extremely good run. So, I mean, I think Penn State fans with their conspiracy theories are not thinking big enough. The Big Ten is not out to get them. The College Football Playoff Committee is clearly out to get Penn State right now. That's
Texas.
That is inexplicable to me.
Texas A&M up 3 spots to 11.
Mm-hmm. Wake Forest only falls 3 spots to 12. That's interesting to me. I thought for sure that was going to be, they still didn't have any great wins, and they're going to lose again. Baylor only drops 1 spot. Interesting.
So Oklahoma State is 10, up 1 spot. And we wait patiently for number 9.
Oklahoma State ahead of Texas A&M. Your thoughts? Because
I mean, and there's Notre Dame at number 9. It feels like Oklahoma State is just it's at this point.
But I mean, Texas A&M has some bad losses, but they also have the win over Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And Oklahoma State Oklahoma State's schedule is not. They don't have a great win yet. I'm pulling it up right now, but I don't think they had a fantastic win unless there's someone I'm forgetting.
I mean, how could they?
That's interesting.
Big 12, and they haven't played Oklahoma.
Well,
yet.
but they haven't played Oklahoma yet. And did they beat
Iowa State?
Did they beat Iowa State? Yeah, they lost to Iowa State.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, here's their wins: Missouri State by 7, Tulsa by 5, Boise State by 1, Kansas State by 11, Baylor by 10 at home, at Texas by 8. They lost to Iowa State. They beat Kansas and they won at West Virginia. Like I mean, I know that the committee's running bit is that the SEC gets the benefit of every doubt, but I'm going to need someone to show their work on Oklahoma State ahead of Texas A&M.
And Oklahoma holds serve at number 8. So we'll have the same top 7, just in a different order, same top 8, just in a different order. And I'm guessing we will see Michigan next, and then Michigan State at 6.
I mean, yeah, again, let's find out how important head-to-head
Cincinnati,
is. Because,
is Cincinnati going to drop down to 7 here? I mean, they did not look good against Tulsa.
They did not look good against Tulsa. Yeah.
They tried to give that game away. And
I think that's a real
possibility. Did. Yeah. I think we could see them at 7 right here. And it's almost like just like told you so type of thing from the committee. Here we go.
I'm going to guess Georgia's number 1.
Georgia number 1. Gosh, didn't know that one. And this will be Alabama again because Alabama. Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun,
well,
dun.
if it is Alabama too, and you let me know when it pops
Alabama.
up. Okay, Alabama too. So
no reason to speculate now.
Well, my question there is, so who else? Like, who else deserves to be number 2? Because it's like, if it was someone other than Alabama, like, okay, you could put Ohio State 2, you could put Oregon 2, but I don't know that they have a clear and definitive case to be ahead of Alabama. I
can give you the top 4 right now if you want.
Go ahead.
Oregon number 3 and Ohio State number 4.
Yeah, I mean,
Georgia
I don't know
1 and Alabama 2.
Yeah, I don't know if it's popped up for you yet, but yes, that is exactly what it's going to be.
It
My
has.
team, I
Yeah.
would feel like I'm a little behind you, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm still waiting to see 5, 6, and 7 before I put the last graphic up, and then we can kind of refer to all three
Mhm,
of them
mhm.
since this show evolves and we're doing full graphics now.
Cincinnati
Hmm.
at number 5.
Really?
What?
A big win over Tulsa. And Michigan
What?
State getting punished for the loss, obviously. And I assume they will be number 6. We'll see here Michigan State shortly.
So Cincinnati's number 5. Did they jump over Michigan, or were they ahead of Michigan last week?
No, they were ahead of, so they just moved up a spot basically. And so
Okay,
Michigan State will fall behind them, and we will see. I mean, that was a question. Was Cincinnati just going to go up with everybody else, or was Cincinnati going to be the basement, the floor for everybody? And
does
clearly they're not.
is there some kind of secret bonus for hosting College Game Day that I'm not aware of? Because I didn't see anything from Cincinnati last week, or the week before that, or the week before that that suggested number 5 team in the country like that.
Oh,
I
Michigan number 6. Michigan number
Oh
6.
man,
Oh
oh
boy.
man,
Oh boy. I have to
oh
change my
boy.
graphic.
Wait till number 7 is Penn State, and we all go
I know.
Michigan State
No,
unranked.
Michigan
Who?
State
What?
number 7. This is
Yeah,
amazing.
boy,
So
oh boy.
there is no longer any argument about if
Mhm,
Ohio State and Oregon and being head to head. They've already acknowledged that head to head
mhm,
is not the, like, I know I just said before the show that they don't, but once we see it, it's impossible to go back on. It's not
mhm.
like Gary Barta is going to say, I just want to let the jury know this is not admissible. Don't don't even recognize the fact that we had Michigan ranked ahead of Michigan State after Michigan State beat them. And so now we throw out all head to heads, I guess. So that's interesting. And that just happened. It's not like Ohio State and Oregon, which happened
Mhm,
back in September. This was 2 weeks ago.
mhm.
That's pretty surprising that they would but I guess it's different in the Big Ten, maybe. Well, it's certainly different with Penn State and Auburn. I mean, Penn State not even ranked. Auburn number
Mhm.
17, taking that the Mississippi State honorary degree or position, and being 17th there. I'm pretty surprised at the Michigan State thing because I didn't think it would happen this quickly.
No, I don't. I'm shocked at that because it's not like Michigan has looked just dynamite the last couple weeks. It's just they lost to Michigan State. They have looked like they've been fine. They beat Indiana, but beat Indiana like just like okay, it was fine. Like check it off the list. There were 0 style points awarded for that one. They played. I mean, who'd they have before that? They played Northwestern before that, and that game was close till after halftime. They played who else? I mean, we do this show every week. I feel like I should know Michigan's schedule off the top of my head, but it's like every week we have the same conversation on the Michigan Monday podcast, which is like,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it was fine. There was the week that they lost, and then there's a bunch of weeks that it was like, yeah, it's fine, but 20 it's just been a whole season full of like 20-13 over Rutgers. Like, yeah, it's a win, but what have we actually learned? So, maybe this is they're just saving it all and they're just going to explode on someone that maybe they come out and shock me and just completely blow up all over Penn State this weekend. But I have to see it once because we saw it for the first 3 weeks of the season against not great competition, and then since then it's just been like you know everything has been like a C- game from them for basically the last month and a half.
I'm looking at Penn State, not in this. They have wins over the number 18 Wisconsin, number 17 Auburn. The loss, obviously, Iowa, Illinois, and OSU, and they say they take into account injuries and things like that. They're clearly not doing this with Penn State at all, and
No.
it's a pretty
Yeah.
significant injury compared when you think of the drop off from the starter to the guy behind him. And I this Penn State thing, I feel for the Penn State fans, and I'm gonna have to jump off here, not to go jump on a teleconference, but to go read the message board at BWI just to
Oh
enjoy
Lord.
a little bit of firestorms as all heck breaks loose there at Penn State. I feel bad for the Nittany Lions. I mean, there is no level of respect that the committee is showing them. It's a level of disrespect
No respect.
that would make Mark D'Antonio just irate. And I wonder if James Franklin will talk about it or if he'll just we don't discuss it. Kevin, what do you think about this whole Penn State thing?
I'm shocked, but I'm not shocked. Hashtag shocked, not shocked. I'm shocked that it's what we're at right now, but I'm not shocked that Penn State is not getting any respect, is not getting the benefit of the doubt, is not getting the Sean Clifford was injured for a game and a half card played there, because I pretty much felt that when we saw the SEC cluster last week that that it's going to take a lot to break up the SEC in terms of the rankings. And I haven't had really, yes, I typed the rankings out, but I've not counted how many teams from each conference are in. I haven't had a chance to absorb that. So while Tony's off on the call and Tom and I are talking, maybe then I'll get a chance to really feel what the rankings look like. But yeah, I think Penn State should be ranked, but I'm not shocked. I mean, I don't know what Penn State's going to have to do in order to earn the respect of this committee.
They will have to beat Michigan State and Michigan. I mean, they'll put them in next week if they beat Michigan, and then but where 22. Good job, guys. And with that, Tom, I will go ahead and I'll let you guys go. You can go ahead and take it to a 2-screen. I'll let you know when I'm back, but it'll probably be like 30 or 40 minutes or however long it takes after the committee gets done talking to me. See ya.
We'll see you in a little bit.
All right. So, I mean, we can start with I think the three things that jump out to me, which are Michigan over Michigan State, which I'm blown away with the fact that head-to-head has been, head-to-head is very clearly the only thing keeping Oregon ahead of Ohio State. Because you go through the rest of the resumes, who has the better wins outside, Oregon has the win over Ohio State. No other ranked wins. Ohio State has, maybe keeping Penn State out of the rankings is keeping Ohio State from jumping Penn State or from jumping Oregon, maybe. But, Ohio State has had been consistently much more dominant throughout the season. Their loss is to the number 3 team, not to an absolutely hot garbage Stanford team. So, I mean, very clearly that win, that head-to-head is what's propping Oregon over Ohio State right now, which is fine. But you never get intellectual, consistency from the committee. If Oregon at, 8-1 or 7-1, whatever they are right now, is ahead of Ohio State on head-to-head, well, then it seems pretty much like Penn State should be ahead of Auburn, who they're both 6-3, and Penn State has a head-to-head win over Auburn, and they have the same number of ranked wins. Like this seems like this should be a pretty easy decision. And instead, Auburn is 17th, and Penn State's unranked. And Michigan being one spot ahead of Michigan State, like it doesn't make any sense to me. The Penn State thing I just talked about is the second thing that makes no sense. Like, where are they? Where is Penn State? Did they forget to talk about Penn State this week? I mean, Kevin, make the case for me. Go ahead and be Gary Barta. Make the case for me that Penn State is not one of the top 25 teams in the country right now. I will while you're thinking about it, I'm going to read down their schedule just so that everyone has it. Road win over Wisconsin, who is currently ranked by the committee. Road win. They beat Ball State. Home win over Auburn by 8 points. They beat, which is a team that's ranked by the committee. They beat Villanova. They beat Indiana by 24. They lost on the road at Iowa in a game they were winning big with their quarterback, Sean Clifford, before he got hurt, and then they fell apart after that. A home loss to Illinois in overtime with, again, a dinged-up Sean Clifford. And then a road loss to Ohio State, which was one of the most competitive games Ohio State's had to play all year. And then they won last week at Maryland. So go ahead and make the case for me, Kevin, that Penn State is not a top 25 team based on that resume.
We are not aware of who Penn State is. We haven't seen them. We don't know their body of work, and we were just told we were going to get some pretty sweet travel to Texas and that we weren't going to have to do a lot of work. So I don't know who you are, but I have no justification as to why we do not have Penn State in there. don't make me call security, because it makes no sense. It really makes no sense to me why they've done what they've done there. I would like, I would like to stay up on and just be comical about it, but I mean, I'm flabbergasted. I really just don't know. The more I think about it, listening to, even just some of the talking points that you said there, it's just absurd that they don't have them in there. But I don't know. I mean, maybe there just aren't enough people in there. There are people that are having to recuse themselves, and there just aren't enough people in there strongly talking about Penn State enough or something. Because to me, it feels like it has to be an oversight. I mean, I'll be very curious when Tony comes back on to hear what they say, because somebody's certainly going to ask about that situation, and I want to know. I mean, more than anything else on this call, that is what I want to know the most about, because I have no idea. And for the people complaining about the rankings, I fixed that last page. It's a lot more justified now. So calm the OCD down, because I have it too.
Yeah, we do not have a separate Chiron operator. Kevin has to do a bunch of stuff, so patience for Kevin is much appreciated. Hardy Jens makes an interesting point in the comments. Unranked Penn State is a 1-point favorite at home against Michigan, number 6 Michigan. Now you get 3 points for being at home, and maybe the bookies are giving him a little bit of extra because it's a big Penn State game, and the Penn State crowd can get a little rowdy for those. So okay, say it's 4. So then on a neutral field, they're 3 points better than Michigan. Or I'm sorry, they're 3 points behind Michigan. Number 6 to unranked is not a 3-point gap. That's a touchdown gap.
Right.
And the bookmakers are the ones who have to do this for a living. The committee is just like, they can kind of throw crap at the wall, and in a lot of ways. And I realize I'm saying this on a show in which we're going to spend like an hour talking about this TV show, but it's just a TV show. Like, this is all kind of a theoretical exercise right now. And it's interesting in that you can kind of get a sense for what the committee's thinking and a sense for how the committee's going to make its decisions this year. But it's just a TV show. So in the aggregate right now, week 2 of the college football playoff rankings, I'm looking at the point spreads a lot more than I'm looking at what the committee thinks in terms of figuring it, or the AP poll, in terms of figuring out like who's really good, like who really would on a neutral field be favored. That's really kind of who I think really deep down everyone would think is the best. Realistically, what Cincinnati's probably at least a touchdown underdog against a lot of the teams who are ahead of them right now.
At least.
But yeah, I mean, back to the Penn State point, like if Penn State is a home favorite against number 6 Michigan, there's no way that they should be, obviously at least 20 spots behind. We don't know, were they 26? Did they just get left out? Because that's what happened to Purdue in the AP poll. Purdue was 26th in the AP poll. And it was like, they've beaten 2 teams that were ranked number 2 this year. And, the 2 teams that are still ranked ahead of them. Like, what is going on? Have you guys not watched the games? What is going on? The last thing I did want to touch on, and we'll get to some questions and some comments in a minute. So if you guys do have questions, throw those in the chat and we'll get to those shortly. Oklahoma State over Texas A&M. Oklahoma State. I'm going to read. I did this earlier. I'm going to read through this resume for Oklahoma State, and you tell me what puts them ahead of a Texas A&M team that lost 2 games early, looked terrible early in the year, but has very much gotten it together, and now looks like they just beat Auburn, who the committee values very highly. They have a win over Alabama, which no one else has in the country right now. Here's Oklahoma State. Beat Missouri State by 7, beat Tulsa by 5, beat Boise State by 1, beat Kansas State by 11, beat Baylor by 10. There's one ranked win, Baylor, who's just barely hanging on in the rankings right now. Won at Texas by 8, lost at Iowa State by a field goal, beat Kansas, won at West Virginia. What exactly is number 10 Oklahoma Oklahoma State hanging its hat on there that is better than beat Alabama and beat Auburn last week? Make the case for me. You can yet again, I will let you live your dreams and be Gary Barta. Kevin, explain to me Oklahoma State over Texas A&M.
Well, we just don't think the SEC is very good, so therefore we need to drop Texas A&M. We're strong believers in the Big 12 and what they can do there, and we're trying to set up the biggest bedlam game that we can, and we just, You know, Texas A&M was obviously beat by a very substandard Alabama team that struggled with LSU. So I mean, they're lucky we even ranked them in the first place. So I don't know what you're talking about. We have too much SEC in here. We don't have enough SEC in here. What is it with you people? What do you want me to do here? We're just 13 men and women here in Grapevine, Texas, trying to eat Taco Bueno and Whataburger, and you guys keep turning cameras on us and making this all very confusing. We just want some time away from our individual schools and lives. So just get off our back. Tune in December after championship week. We'll pick 4 teams out of a hat, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But until then, leave us alone.
I mean, that's as good an answer as anything Tony's going to get on the conference call right now. But that's another question. I mean, there's only a few things here that really jump out. Like, what are you doing here? And those are crazy to me. I'd also be interested in the rationale in moving Cincinnati up a couple spots. I mean, like, yeah, you're going to move up ahead of potentially ahead of Michigan State, I guess. So I mean, they're 5. I think were they 6 last week or 7? They were 6 last week, right? So they jumped Michigan. They jumped Michigan State. They didn't jump. I mean, Michigan had a much more impressive win last week than Cincinnati did.
Yeah, Michigan beat Indiana in Ann Arbor in a game that Indiana really. I mean, granted, Indiana's down to its 3rd and its 4th quarterbacks, but they showed a lot more game control and all these other metrics and everything else out there. And Cincinnati did everything within its power to try and lose that game. And if Davis Brin or whatever the Tulsa quarterback doesn't slip and go down on the half-yard line, I mean, we're looking at a game that could have ended with a different outcome.
Yeah, I mean Tulsa had the ball down 8 at the 1 yard line on 3rd down. The quarterback slipped. People were saying he dove. It looked like he was sliding. I think he just literally his feet came out from under him. Otherwise, he scores, and they have a 2-point conversion to tie the game. And on the 4th down, the running back is reaching the ball out, and they called on the field that the ball was out, and I think the call stood because it was one of those not enough clear evidence. It was close enough that there was not enough clear evidence. And so that's it. Cincinnati avoided having a 2-point conversion against Tulsa by that much. And
I brought you back on camera.
Oh, sorry, that much.
I'm bitterly disappointed. I'm bitterly disappointed.
Yes, I'm holding my hands exactly the same distance that everyone always holds their hands when they're making some kind of a point about not very much of a distance. Exactly that amount of space. We're talking about teams, Cincinnati and Tulsa, where there are common data points here. Ohio State and Cincinnati have both played Tulsa. Ohio State beat Tulsa by 3 touchdowns. Cincinnati beat them by, again, my hands are exactly the same distance as everyone. Yes, that game was close into the 4th quarter, but Ohio State pulled away and won by 3 touchdowns. Michigan beat Indiana, which is that was supposed to be one of Cincinnati's 2 out of conference tentpole wins. They won on the road and beat Notre Dame, but that was the one. This is it. Indiana almost beat Ohio State and almost went to the Big Ten championship game and almost won the Outback Bowl last year. That's almost a really impressive team. And then, that their win against Indiana has been much closer, way closer than Ohio State's win, much closer than Michigan's win. And yes, we're taking, that Michael Penix is out. How great was Michael Penix before Michael Penix was out? I will refer you to the case of the Iowa Hawkeyes defense versus Indiana football this year, which was not outstanding for Indiana. And if we're going to take injuries into account, then let's circle back to the Penn State conversation. Sean Clifford, they unquestionably beat Iowa if Sean Clifford does not get hurt. They unquestionably beat Illinois because it took 9 overtimes with an extremely banged up Sean Clifford. So they unquestionably beat Illinois. They unquestionably beat Iowa without an injury to Sean Clifford. So then their only loss is on the road by 9 at Ohio State. And that's not a team that's ranked. There's just, this is the same stuff that we do. We go through this every year where it's you start going through and it's the committee there's a little bit of, because we said so there. If you have kids, it's you get asked questions for a while. It's well, why are we not going to get ice cream? Because, well, you have to eat your dinner first. Well, why? Because you have to eat your dinner first because there's good nutrients in your dinner. But you have to eat your dinner first. Why? Because I said so. And the committee kind of gets to that because I said so point pretty early. It's like, well, why does head-to-head matter here if it doesn't matter there? Because I said so. And that's it. And that's just kind of how these things go. Pretty much every year around this time, we're kind of having a lot of these same conversations. Like, does it matter or does it not? And it's like, well, it depends.
Right, and they're not gonna want to sit there to admit a mistake, even if Penn State wins out. It's probably still going to be a slow process of 25, 22, 21. I mean, they're just not going to move quickly because they don't want to show that, they don't want us to see behind the curtain and that the all powerful Wizard of Oz is just immortal. I mean, so I don't know. Super chat in from Drizzy Dez. The ranking is pissing me off. We are still behind Oregon. I still don't get why they ranked Michigan over Michigan State. So let me bring that first page back up. Thank you for the super chat, Drizzy. Let's let Daffy run his course here for a second, since that'll compete with the graphic.
And Ohio State being behind Oregon is totally fine. That's not a problem right now. It's not really a problem at all. It's you can make a justification for Oregon over Ohio State. Obviously, they won in Columbus. You could make a case for Ohio State over Oregon, but Oregon, you put those two teams head to head, Oregon won in Columbus. You put those two resumes head to head, Oregon has a better win than Ohio State's does. Now, Oregon's going to have to go to Utah in a couple weeks, and then Oregon's probably going to have to play Utah again in the Pac-12 championship game. Kevin, what are the odds? I just did a Morning Scoop episode with Mark Givler a couple days ago where we talked about exactly this, about the whole top 10. Like, there could be a lot of losses coming in that top 10. But, Kevin, to you, what are the odds that Oregon beats Utah with the way Utah is playing right now, which, if you haven't seen them, is good? What are the odds they win at Utah and then win a neutral site game against Utah? And this is actually a conversation that matters a month from now.
I don't know. 1 in 10, maybe 2 in 10. I mean, just the way that Oregon has kind of been fumbling down the line, and I kind of take that Washington game off of the table a little bit. I'm going to bring us back to our two shot as another super chat's coming in. I just have a hard time believing that they'd be able to do it twice. It's hard to beat anybody twice. As good as we've seen some Ohio State teams having to play Wisconsin twice, let me tell you that's very difficult. So, an Oregon team that, they don't have CJ Verdell at running back. They do have Travis Dye. They've been getting good play, but maybe not great play. I don't know. I mean, Ohio State, Oregon's one thing. It's a team that, you don't play each other but once every blue moon, and that blue moon happens to be in the postseason more often than not, versus a conference foe that you play on the regular. So you've scouted each other every year. I mean, you have notes and notes and notes and notes about the other team. I don't see it. So, I think this is a pretty decent Oregon team. So that's why I say 2 out of 10. But then again, I think my lack of respect for the Pac-12 pushes me down to 1 out of 10.
And Oregon is going to go into you didn't see any other Oregon teams that they've played so far in those rankings. Fresno State, I think, was in kind of at the bottom last week. Fresno State got drubbed by Boise State, so Fresno State is out and probably not coming back. You don't see any other Pac-12 teams in there, and like maybe Utah gets in. But the only way Utah gets in and stays in is if they keep winning, and if they keep winning, that means they've beaten Oregon at least once.
Yeah.
So it's Oregon is very, very likely going to end the conference championship game weekend with one ranked win. That win will be over Ohio State. It will be a better win than probably anyone else in the top 5 has. Stipulated. Ohio State at that point, if Ohio State is still in this conversation where they're 12-1 and a Big Ten champion, will have wins over Penn State, who is probably going to be ranked somewhere at that point. Purdue, which is ranked this week and could, even if they lose to Ohio State, could win a couple more and stay in the rankings. They could have a win. They would have a win over Michigan State, which is currently ranked in the top 10. They would have a win over Michigan, which is currently ranked in the top 10, and they'd have a win over Wisconsin or whoever ends up representing the West. I'm just kind of like using Wisconsin as a placeholder there, but whoever that is, that's going to be a ranked team, whether that's Iowa or Wisconsin, or if Minnesota wins a bunch of games to get in. If Minnesota wins out to get into that game, Minnesota's going to be a ranked team. And then you've got two ranked wins over Minnesota. So, Ohio State's going to have potentially like 6 ranked wins to 1 for Oregon. And at that point, I think you're probably, this is sort of an academic conversation where it's like, yes, Oregon has this one thing that they can hang their resume on. And it's very impressive. They beat Ohio State. It's the best win of either of those teams head to head. Absolutely. The 6 next best wins. So at that point, Ohio State probably does jump Oregon. Like, it would not at all surprise me if they both win out and it's, Ohio State's number 2 and Oregon finishes number 4, and Oregon goes and plays Georgia and Ohio State plays Oklahoma or something.
Right.
That, because I think they will probably try and avoid the rematch in that first round. And, Oklahoma, they're number 8 right now, but they still have to beat Baylor, who's ranked right now, Iowa State, who's pretty good, Oklahoma State, who's number 10, and then they have to beat one of those teams again. So I do wonder, we do the vaguely tinfoil hatty look at where all these other teams are in the rankings, and that will show you who they're trying to prop up. Having Oklahoma State 10 does kind of suggest to me, without any real justification for it, does kind of suggest to me like, hey, if Oklahoma has to beat this team twice, then whoop, guess if they do it, they can rock it up, and they can be number 3, and it's number 1 Georgia, number 2 Ohio State, number 3 Oklahoma, number 4 Oregon.
There is a path there. There's what that kind of shows. There is a path.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, we're getting a little conspiratorial here, but this is kind of, you look at the committee year after year. This is sort of how they set themselves up to do things later. That just feels like what it's sort of set up to do right now.
I want to jump in with Ken Haynes. He put a super sticker, which is different than a super chat, and the super sticker is of a Shiba dog shouting "good luck" in a megaphone. So, thank you, Ken Haynes, for the super sticker. I will have to read up more on what exactly all the super stickers are about. There are various ways that our great audience can sit there and contribute to the cause. Super stickers being one of them. Thank you, Ken. Let me, now I can get off of that one and start kind of posting some of the good things that I've seen. But yeah, I'm just not sure on, their reasoning on a couple of these things. Sam Maloney thinks that he could see Utah winning both before Oregon winning both. I mean, I don't disagree. Sam always has some really good takes on here. I always enjoy his contributions to the show. Yeah, I've not watched a ton of Utah, but I have watched a little bit. I've watched a lot of Oregon. I watched a good amount of that Oregon-Washington game, and I understand that it was a torrential downpour and so on and so forth, but Oregon has not been great, and as somebody else pointed out earlier in the chat, Oregon's been dealing with a significant amount of injuries, and that, that's part of the game, but it's real, and some teams are going to be touched by it more than others, and Oregon's been touched a lot by injuries, and once you really start to slog down in conference, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and they've Kayvon Thibodeau feels like he's half the season, and CJ Verdell's out for the year. I mean, those are 2 very, very big pieces. Justin Flo missed the Ohio State game. I mean, there are a lot of guys who have missed time for them, and I think every team's dealing with that to a certain degree. I mean, look at it, look at Ohio State. Ohio State has it's constantly like random mystery dude who's out this week. Last week it was Garrett Wilson. He's out for the week. He'll be back next week, but he's out this week. Like, it's constantly there's someone out. That's college football right now, and that's what you have depth for. Like, you don't magically get all your guys back before the college football playoffs, so that does actually factor into this a little bit. Gary Lewis says #OutWest bias. Both Utah and San Diego State deserve to be in the college football playoff top 25. I have not. I can pull up Utah's record resume real quick, but number one, I think they're suffering from not having a lot of other good teams in their in the conference, which that's gonna hurt you. You don't have a lot of opportunities for good wins because no one else in that conference it has put up impressive wins this year. Utah is 6-3. They have a win over Weber State. They lost to BYU, who is ranked. They lost at San Diego State in overtime, and I mean San Diego State is ranked. They won. They beat Washington State. They won at USC. They beat Arizona State. They lost at Oregon State. They beat UCLA, and they won at Stanford. But the rest of their schedule is at Arizona, who is maybe home for Oregon, and Colorado, who is, or just beat Arizona to avoid being the worst Power 5 team. It is, the Pac-12 is just, it's down this year, and so you don't have that many opportunities to have those resume building wins because we talked earlier about all those 6-3 teams, and it's Purdue and it's Auburn and it's Penn State. Utah's right in there with them, but Utah doesn't have the Penn State win over Auburn or the Purdue win over Iowa and Michigan State or the Auburn win over Texas A&M or over who'd they beat? They beat 2 ranked teams earlier this year too. I'm getting all these teams confused, but
it all
Auburn
kind of runs together. Yeah.
Yeah. Auburn has a couple wins over ranked teams. Utah doesn't. So Utah, I think, will end up there, especially if they beat, Oregon in a couple weeks. They're going to be in there. Kyle Whittingham, it's just like that's one of those programs that I think the average college football fan doesn't really appreciate exactly how good that Utah program is, because it's just the same darn thing every year. It's just like they are just a really good, solid team. They run the ball. They play good defense. They're really well coached. They went like 10 years in a row winning their bowl game because it was just like a constant string of like holiday bowls and bowl games that are not like necessarily New Year's Six kind of games, but they're just so well coached and so disciplined, and they just play such good football that they just beat the crap out of whoever they play in the bowl games every year. I think that streak ended a couple of years ago, but that was like the free space on your bowl pick'em bingo card was like Utah with like 36 confidence points because whoever they were playing was going to have a really crappy night. And San Diego State, I would be remiss if we're going to talk about San Diego State. Kevin, have you seen the San Diego State punter this year?
I have not. You're
Oh,
talking
man.
number 22 ranked San Diego State.
Yes, number 22 ranked San Diego State. Oh, man. Treat yourselves to some late night San Diego State football at some point. They just played Hawaii, which I am a sucker for late night Hawaii football, so I stayed up for that one. And Matt Areza, I think is his name, but he's already pretty much broken all of the most punts over 50 yards, most punts over 60 yards. He's just booming like 75, 80 yards in the air punts. It's like otherworldly. It's incredible.
Tom Brady's going to want to deflate those balls.
If I had a Heisman vote, I would like semi-seriously, if it was just strictly like value over replacement player, like he is so much better than any other punter in the country. It's not even funny. Like there should just be one Ray Guy finalist this year. It's insane. And it is a very Brady Hoke team. They don't have any offense at all. They just play defense and punt the ball. But it is incredibly entertaining to watch this dude punt the football. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, they put so many other things on CBS Sportsnet, and I changed my lineup of channels, and I don't get CBS Sportsnet, and I'm like, do I care that much to pay the $8 more a month? I mean, I get it's only $8, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to find his greatest hits on YouTube. I think I have a Ray Guy vote. I don't know. I know I vote for a couple of things. So if I see that, I mean, I'll have to go back and look through my emails after I get off of here. But no, that's pretty amazing. I'm not one of, I'm not, captain special teams, and I'm all about watching those. But I know that there are a lot of people who really enjoy that. And if this guy's booming 65, 70 yarders, I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. And Gary Lewis, 86-yard punt. I mean, come on, man. That's just crazy.
No, that's crazy. It is ludicrous. It is like you have seen punters your whole life, and you've seen like good punters, and you see, Ohio State fans remember the Drew Chrisman game against Michigan State where he was the post-game interview on national TV because he killed like 5 punts in a row inside the 5. Like you've seen punters do crazy stuff. You have never seen a punter do this. It is unbelievable. Google his name. It's incredible. Just treat yourself to just some of the videos. He punted at altitude. They played Air Force, I think, a couple weeks ago, and it was like the thin air. It was like peak Barry Bonds at Coors Field. Just it was amazing. So let's see. Hardy Jen says, "I have a Ray Guy vote" is one heck of a pickup line. Yep.
If it works, I mean, whatever. I can't sit there and say that I, have a high paying job or a nice car or anything, but I have a Ray Guy vote. Maybe I have to check that one. I'm not sure.
Let's see.
I mean, I've got about 15 in the
Yeah,
queue
go
right
go ahead. Yeah,
to
go ahead and
the Sterling White. I don't like the inconsistency. MSU beat Michigan head to head, and right behind them, the committee has to be consistent across the board. I don't disagree. I mean, it's where does head to head matter and where does it not matter? I mean, kind of what's the criteria there? I mean, we saw a lot more head to head type of stuff with how Mississippi State and Kentucky were ranked. I mean, then of course, Kentucky loses to Tennessee. Mississippi State, who do they play? Arkansas. I don't even remember. The game started to run together after a while.
yeah, I think it
Uh,
was
I think
Arkansas.
it was
Yeah.
Arkansas. So some of that sorted itself out. I'm going to have to look at the rankings here again, and
Mhm.
I'll run through them here in a couple minutes. We'll reset here and 10 after, just to go through
Mhm.
the rankings again for anybody who's joined us. We're at about 345 people right now. We've been as high as
Mhm.
400. Really enjoy everybody being part of Buckeye Weekly Live, our rankings reaction show. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, how is Michigan State? Why is that one being handled so much differently than any of the other ones?
Well, and there's an interesting comment here from Nicholas Marconi, and he did not provide a source on this, so I'm just going to read it verbatim and not necessarily vouch for it. But it seems like it probably checks out. Don't attribute to malice what can be reasonably ascribed to incompetence. Studies in economics have shown that ranked preferences don't hold when people compare three or more things to each other, which is, I mean, it makes sense. And this is the real challenge for the committee here is you're comparing teams with completely different resumes from completely separate data sets with very few cross points. And the one you get those very few cross points, and some of them are like, well, LSU lost to UCLA. So what does that mean? Does that mean the entire Pac-12 is better than the entire SEC? Because we only have a few data points, cross points between these two conferences. That it is for the committee a very difficult job to compare a bunch of data sets that don't have a lot of competition, because it's like the Big Ten 2 weeks ago. The Big Ten had 4 teams in the top 10, 5 teams in the top 11, whatever it was, and it's like, well, okay, all of these teams have really good records. None of the Big Ten East teams had played each other yet. So how much of that is because they've played kind of the way the schedule worked out this year was that they played the weaker teams first, and now they're playing the tougher teams later, and then they're all going to end up catching losses later, while the SEC spreads it out a little bit more throughout the season, and then they have SEC SoCon Challenge weekend coming up, while Ohio State has to go figure out how to beat Purdue and then Michigan State and then Michigan and then a potential Big Ten championship game. So it is a difficult thing to try and to do, and you're going to be contradictory in some ways, because you can't just go head to head as like an absolute black and white. But you also, like, literally a week ago, Michigan State beat Michigan, literally a week, and it was not like just barely. We're extremely fortunate and would have lost that game 9 out of 10 times. They beat Michigan.
I'm bringing Tony
So
back in right now. Go ahead.
all right, all right, Tony. We spent this entire time on the BWI open board reading posts, and I have some questions about Penn State. Tony, was Penn State addressed? Where are the Nittany Lions of Michigan State's anger about disrespect?
First of all, are you lying to me? Did you really do that or did you not? Because
Does that
that
sound like
sounds
something we
like
would do?
it sounds like an amazing show, actually.
No, I'm kidding. We
Penn's
were on the Red Cedar message board. I was kidding.
Penn State, to tell you how little people care about Penn State. Penn State came up at the very end, and um, it was Heather Dinich, I believe, asked about Penn State and why aren't they ranked. And Gary Barta said, "Well, we talked about Penn State this week. Talked about them more this week than we did last week, and we did talk about them last week. The committee sees when a team beats them, they view that as a good win, and they know Penn State is tough. But just look at number 25 Arkansas, for example. They have a win over Texas A&M and Mississippi State, and Penn State just hasn't been able to get to that point yet. And Tom, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, but what about the win over Auburn at 17 and the win over number 18 Wisconsin? That's a trick of words that you're going to try to use, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
And Mississippi State was 17 at one time, so who's to say they couldn't be 17 at another time? And yes, they didn't really get into anything other than the words Auburn loss or Auburn win never came up. And I was expecting more. I did not get on. I wasn't able to get on, but I was expecting more Penn State, and there's just not a lot of or what. But Heather Dinich did try, and that was the answer was like, hey, they're just not as good as Auburn or Arkansas, because Arkansas has A&M and Mississippi State, and you just can't beat that, Tom.
Well, and you got to remember Arkansas beat Texas, and only like 4 other teams have done that this year. So that's pretty. I mean, you have been advised not to mess with Texas, and they did, which you have to respect that. There was a comment just a second ago about Penn State's run defense is lacking, which I mean, like, or can't run the ball or something. Like, I mean, Auburn just scored like 3 points at Texas A&M, so it's not like Auburn is exactly a full, a complete team. And we're talking about the bottom of the rankings. Like, the bottom of the rank, you don't have the excellent all-around teams at the bottom of the rankings. Everyone below, you could argue literally everyone in the poll is flawed in some way. There are holes that Georgia has in their team, and if you'd like to hear more about that, you can listen to the Tuesday Morning Scoop episode that Bill Green and I did at Buckeye Scoop. Search Morning Scoop on your podcast platform of choice. Bill did a really good job breaking down some of the potential vulnerabilities for Georgia. And then after that, number 2, darn near lost to a team that already fired its coach this year at home last week. And then it kind of goes downward from there. Like, this is a year when everybody's flawed. Everyone has issues, which is one of the reasons this is such a fun season. But I mean, yeah, I'm you get the sense there was the week 1 of the AP poll. There was the Arizona got a couple votes, and I was like, how did Arizona get votes? And I kind of landed on, well, I think there was a writer who accidentally, I think it was a writer from Florida or something, probably meant to put Arizona State there and just clicked on the wrong thing on the drop down and submitted without double checking their work. Like, hear me out here. What if they accidentally meant to put Penn State in there? They meant to put Penn State in there, and then like, oops, we clicked on Pittsburgh, but we didn't check our work before we submitted. Thoughts?
No, that was not the case. And Tom, I'm just looking at the rush defense nationally. Penn State's at like 49, Arkansas is like 74 or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. The Michigan State thing, surprised it came up,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were like, so how did you guys decide on Michigan being ahead of Michigan State? And he said, well, like the conversation goes all the way back to last week when Michigan State beat Michigan, and this week they just decided Michigan looked better, Michigan State lost, and then it was Doug Maurice of Cleveland.com calls up, I believe, and says, I want to go back to the Michigan State thing. Were there people in the committee last week after Michigan State just beat Michigan saying Michigan is better? Is that part of the conversations that were going on? And Barta was like, well, I'm not going to go there. And then said, like, I don't remember all of the conversations. And now I'm envisioning him like in front of Congress, like, I do not recollect, I do not recall.
How am I supposed to
And
be responsible for all my wheelings and dealings?
I don't even know what Sandinistas are at this point. But so yes, it was very head to head. It was probably the week before. This time, Michigan State lost. Michigan looked better, and he said, and you know what, it could change next week as well. And so there is that. That is their view on head to head. And so then I think the final call was from Nicole Auerbach, and she's like, "So Gary, why is it okay for head to head to be the decider on between some teams and not others? Like, why is it okay for?" And she didn't mention this, but it's clear she was talking about Ohio State and Oregon, and Michigan State and Michigan. And I think He had no good answer. Because I don't. He could have answered it better, obviously. But basically, well, like no, head to head is not. It's just one piece of the information that they use, and it's not that they use it in every discussion, but it may not be the main thing. It's like if you want a very floury cake, you throw more flour in it, and if you don't want to, it's just one ingredient. And so, my takeaway is that they view Oregon and Ohio State as very close. That's why they go head to head. They don't view Michigan State nearly as close because they view Michigan as a more complete team offensively and defensively. And a little bit of luck was involved, I guess, in that win over Michigan. They didn't say that, but clearly, if they think Michigan is better, then Michigan State had to win. Couldn't have been because they were better. There was some luck thrown in there. So that was the justification for sometimes head to head is good. Sometimes it is not enough. I will say this: the reason Oregon stayed ahead last week it was because of the win, the head to head win. This week, neither of the teams, neither Ohio State or Oregon, looked outstanding or looked much different than the other. So that means to me, and not just to me, but the way he was saying it is, if Ohio State goes out and looks absolutely dominant against Purdue and Oregon just wins ugly, Ohio State's going to be 3 next week.
Mhm.
If
Yeah,
one
that's
team can just separate themselves from the other, they're going to move ahead.
yeah, and Ohio State. We think we talked about this before you got back on. Ohio State has an opportunity to completely change their resume in the next 4 weeks. Oregon is going to play. Oregon. No one left on Oregon's schedule is ranked, and in order for Oregon to beat them, they are not going to be ranked later. So Oregon is going to end the year with one ranked win. It is going to be against Ohio State. That is the extent of their resume. Fresno State was in last week, got killed by Boise State. They're probably not going to come back in. Ohio State, in order for this to be a relevant discussion, Ohio State would have to beat Purdue, beat Michigan State, beat Michigan, beat Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, whoever comes out of the West. That's probably 4 teams that end the year ranked, at least 3 teams that end the year ranked. And at that point, you've got 3 ranked wins instead of 1, or 4 ranked wins instead of 1. And Penn State could sneak in, so you could have another one. You could finish 4, 5 ranked wins to 1 for Oregon. So at that point, it's no longer even a close conversation, and Ohio State is ahead. So I think that's probably how that plays out if Ohio State continues to handle their business, even if Oregon does get through having to beat Utah twice.
Let me jump in. We're sitting with 2 super chats right now. Bucknut0730. Thoughts on this in week 12? Alabama loses to Arkansas. Oregon loses to Utah. OSU loses to MSU. Cincinnati loses to SMU. loses to Maryland. Tom loses to Tony in bold predictions. Go.
Shocking upsets. Shocking.
So does Oklahoma then go to 1 at that point, or does
Georgia has
Michigan State? I mean,
Georgia hasn't
Georgia.
lost in this scenario. Yeah, Georgia, and then
Here, let me pull
Michigan
up the top
State,
7.
Oklahoma.
Yeah. We'll look at there at the rankings, and then obviously at that point, you Georgia survives. Michigan wasn't mentioned in that, so Michigan. Oh no, Michigan lost to Maryland. So let's look at who's.
So Oklahoma 2, Michigan State 3.
Yeah, because Michigan State would have a quality win over
Notre
Ohio
Dame
State,
4.
so they'd have to move up. Notre Dame.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do not want.
No, that's 2007 just pushed into one really small little sample size right there. So
this super chat is Sophie's choice of a dirty diaper and a hot dog with ketchup and mustard and also in a dirty diaper.
Here's the thing. There was someone in the chat earlier who said, "Oh, Mark Fetters, I had it pulled up. A 2-loss team could get in." I think it's possible 2 2-loss teams could get in. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility, because the committee is just begging for Cincinnati to lose a game, and they're going to have Houston, or they're going to have to play SMU and probably Houston. They lose one, they're probably out. If Georgia beats Alabama, Alabama's got 2 losses, so Alabama's either out or is a potential 2-loss team in there. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, there's a ton of these teams that have to play each other. Ohio State could lose this week to Purdue, beat Michigan State, beat Michigan. You're still the Big Ten East champion because you haven't lost to anyone in your division, so you're the only team with one loss in the division. You go to the Big Ten championship game, you beat Wisconsin, whoever it is. I mean, you tell me I mean, Oklahoma has losable games left. Oklahoma State's going to lose a game at some point. I went through this. This was another Morning Scoop show I did. Hey, you guys should listen to the Morning Scoop. We talk about a lot of relevant stuff here. But I did a show on today with Bill Green. No, Monday, talking with Mark Givler about I do a lot of podcasts. Anyway, Monday talking with Mark Givler about the top 10 teams. And you go through the schedule for the top 10 teams, and it's like literally any of them could win or could lose at least one game moving forward. The ones who are the surest things are Georgia, and the only real danger game for them is Alabama in the SEC championship game. The only other team in like that top 10 range that you'd feel like very confident, like better than 70% confident they're going to win out, is Notre Dame. That's it. Everyone else could lose. You could have like number 1 Georgia, number 2 Notre Dame, 3 like a 2-loss Ohio State, and 4 like a 2-loss Alabama or something like that
would be
is,
perfect.
That is
I'll take that right now.
That is like entirely possible that could be how that shakes out. It's not likely, but like you start going through those individual schedules. It's like who would you like bet your life makes the playoff right now? Like I feel like Georgia is kind of the one answer that you would, because they're going to lose maybe once, but even if they lose once, they're probably still in. Outside of Georgia, who would you bet your life makes the college football playoff this year?
Nobody. And I think Notre Dame should probably be ranked higher than some teams ahead of them because they just have the easiest road. And Tom, I really want to get to the super chat.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say we should talk for a minute so he can rest his voice because he's talked a lot here for the last couple of minutes. So, but yeah,
rest up, son.
Yeah. I've watched Notre Dame play several games this year, and I don't know what are they ranked right now? They're 9th. They're 9. Very unimpressive 9 to me. I mean, I just have not. I mean, yeah, they're doing what they need to do, and sometimes that's what it comes down to. But I've watched some of these quote unquote ACC games that they've played, and they've been anything but impressive. I mean, they've done just enough, but then again, we've seen Ohio State, win a national championship doing just enough to win some games, and to run the table. So I can't get too mad at Notre Dame, but I'm not overly impressed with them. But
well, I saw Notre Dame was asked about just a minute ago, and what they said was they were asked how close is Notre Dame to the schools above them, meaning Oklahoma, MSU, Michigan, and so on. And Gary Barta said that they had discussions that started with Michigan at number 6 and went all the way to Oklahoma State. So like these 5 teams, and Notre Dame was one of those, and they're all just jumbled in there. He also said the same thing about the 2 through 6, where it's just a log jam. And then you got the 6 through 10. It's another kind of log jam in there. And I don't know how 6 can be in 2 separate log jams, but I am not a member of the committee, and maybe
with those
one day
glasses,
I will be.
You would have fooled me. They're very sharp.
but they said Notre Dame is right in there with that group. They keep winning, and if they keep winning, we'll see. But maybe the strength of schedule will move other teams in there as well in that group. So that was about all that was asked of Notre Dame, because I think everybody knows like they shouldn't be there, and there's some. I don't want to say there's any worry in the media and the teleconference yet that they're going to show up, but I wonder as we go on if there's going to be like, Gary, Notre Dame keeps winning, and that doesn't. I mean, they're not. You're not going to put them in, right, Gary?
Sometimes dead is better.
All right, Tom.
Notre Dame is just the playoff committee getting drunk and calling an ex-girlfriend again. It's like, I wonder how it'll end this time. Like, guess what? You're going to lose to your ex-girlfriend 30-3 in the semifinal yet again. I'm sure this Notre Dame playoff appearance will go very differently than literally all of the others in the last quarter century. I'm sure it'll be fine. All right, Tony, team me up with our super chat from our friend DK.
I mean, we're going to take him on a one shot here when he starts.
Tom, Please let us know what an SEC fan would say to justify Penn State's non-rank. Please use your SEC accent or Australian accent for bonus points.
Well, golly! Apparently, you don't know that Penn State plays in the Big Ten, and nobody in the Big Ten is any good at football. They might be able to count to 20 without taking off their shoes, but they ain't no. They might be good at that book learning, but they ain't good at no football. Now, you might say, hey, didn't Auburn go up there and lose to Penn State this year? Well, you might be right, but I don't know, because that was in a book, and I don't know how to read, so it's okay, so it don't count. Auburn's really good. I know, because they play in the SEC, and they beat some SEC teams, because that's what happens when you play in the SEC. Somebody has to win the game, so that's why Penn State's bad. Back to you, Paul.
Well, Tom has been banned from anywhere below the Mason-Dixon line at this point. Oh, lordy.
My work here is done.
They burned the one
I wasn't
book
sure
that
if
was
he was going to
horrible.
go for it. He went for it.
Tom will go for it.
Come on.
I'm going to send in a super chat for the Australian version of that. Tom, being Australian, poisoning a tree. Wow, that was tremendous, Tom. Good job. You deserve all of the bonus points for that one. I'm just looking through the rest. I think we've pretty much covered everything that the committee said. Wanted to say, they do really like Oklahoma State, guys. Very impressive was the quote. The defense is so dominating this year. Another quote, and the committee has taken notice of that. They had 7 sacks last week. They dominated at West Virginia. They've beaten Baylor, and their only losses at Iowa State. The committee thinks very highly of them. So, Tom, that is why they were at 10. The committee liked the tough win last week in some really bad weather. It was they probably a little bit better than what Ohio State did at Nebraska, and so that was, along with the head-to-head, Oregon just a little bit better. And really, I think that is everything from the committee. All of the questions, not a bunch of questions this week. Everybody wanted to get back to watching basketball.
That's probably not true. Diego D super chat. Hats off to the committee for keeping OU at 8. Now, I'd like a follow up from Diego. Is it so because they didn't move them down or they didn't move them up? I mean, they didn't play last week, so it's not like they improved their resume at all, and they don't have any ranked wins, so it's not like they would have had a. It's not like their resume would have improved quite a bit by having someone move into the rankings or worsened by moving out of the rankings. They just kind of haven't played anyone yet. Their schedule is very backloaded, much like Ohio State's is. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else they were going to do. They neither strengthened nor worsened their resume this week.
And the committee did talk about Oklahoma, and then there's one other thing I wanted to add after that. But so why is Oklahoma ranked so low? What's the main reason? Gary Barta says there's no one reason. No, there's no
All
reason.
The
and the quote was, "It wasn't just a game against KU. They don't have any signature wins. The best win is Texas Tech. Again, like last week, they're watching the quarterback change to Caleb Williams. Everybody likes that, but of course, we haven't seen him since last week, so you don't know what's going on now. But they'll be watching. Compared to, say, Michigan State has a signature win. Now that win is not good enough to make them think that they were better than the team they beat, but still a good win. And there's a lot of football to be played. Tom, and Kevin, you know how like the committee likes to talk about, well, they've beaten this many ranked teams. We have now gotten to the point of justifying Alabama's spot with this. They have 5 wins over 500 teams. That is where we are now. Instead of talking about wins over ranked teams, Gary Barta is now citing wins over teams that are over 500. And another thing that goes into this, a new sheet of paper every week. Why did nothing change? Well, nothing changed. Like everybody won. So nobody was, much better than anybody else. And they came, I guess they came to the same conclusions last week. I guess that's how you know you're smart, when you keep coming to the same conclusions over and over again. Hey, we were right last week. Now we're right again this week. Look at us. Aren't we just so
We're
brilliant?
undefeated.
We are 2-0 this year.
Not changing their opinions despite accumulating new data. Did the committee meet on Facebook this week?
Tom, you're going to get us
Bazing.
canceled everywhere.
They're doing their own research. Boy, there's some great stuff in there's some great stuff in our chat right now. Contributor the Hugh says, when does Bold Predictions come out? Love that show. Tony and I do that. That is our Wednesday Buckeye Weekly show. We will record that tomorrow. At some point tomorrow. It'll probably, I'm guessing this is going to drop as our episode Tuesday evening, so that'll probably come out later in the day. So you'll probably get that Wednesday evening sometime would be my guess.
Yep.
And
And so
Diego
thank you
G
for that.
followed up by saying just a solid to the Sooners and to RJ Young. So
I did.
There's the rest of the story there.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of RJ Young being upset with the rankings while I was on hold with the committee. But you know what? Who loves the rankings? Nobody, except for Tom and his SEC fans. So
Golly!
Sue says, I literally just talked to my BFF from Georgia today, who's a sports writer, and Tom was just spot on. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate it. People are like, wow, he's doing a bit. Nope. Never, not once. Never told one joke on this podcast.
No, certainly not. Did Gary Barta ever say whoops to any of the questions? No. The thing about him and any of these guys on the committee, like they are politicians. They are ADs, they are school presidents. They can answer a question without ever addressing anything in the question. They can talk and talk and talk. And then and then what the really good ones do go like, did that answer your question? And then somebody will go, well, no. And then they would kind of ask it another way. And then they would talk and talk and talk. And then they were like, hopefully that answers your question. And at that point, you're like, well, I'm not going to they're not going to, I can't possibly ask this another way. And you are so defeated and you're just like,
these are not the questions you're looking for.
Exactly. Totally.
These
totally
are not the questions you're looking for.
Yeah. It's the Barta mind trick. DK super chat. Well done, Tom. Unlike most of this podcast, you exceeded my expectations. That is.
I'm choosing to take that as, my initial thought was he meant the rest of this show, like the previous hour or so, did not exceed his expectations. Instead, I'm choosing to take it as, and like the rest of the members of this show, I have exceeded your expectations. Which, DK, I mean, you're welcome. And believe me, I feel you, bud. I feel you. I'm right there with you. I'm literally right there with you.
Contributor to the Hue super chat from contributor to the Hue. Also, can I just get a tally who won it for this week? I assume you're talking about the bold predictions. Mm-hmm. It was who has 2 thumbs and 1 bold predictions this week? This guy.
It was
Tom.
It was not an exemplary week for bold predictions.
I shut him out.
Tony got 1 and 1-0. I actually had 1. I was the guy who rushed for 1,000 yards and they stopped the game and they gave me the football. And then I got tackled for a 3-yard loss on the next play. And then the game ended. So I didn't actually end up with my 1,000 yards. I had my Ohio State finishes +5 in sacks. And then Ohio State made some choices in the final minutes of that game that made Ohio State not finish +5 in sacks. So we ended up tying Tony 1 to me 0.
We all make bad choices in college.
Very much so. Super chat from Jeff Hines. Happy with the number 4, but not convinced we deserve it. You know what? This year, and more than any other year, deserves got nothing to do with it. And mm-hmm. there is one really good team out there. That is Georgia. Everybody else has flaws. And the committee, it's 2 a.m. The committee's just looking for 4 people to go home with.
I have
college.
I have an Andy J joke that I can't make, so that's there's a little something for you Buckeye Scoop subscribers. Diego says, I hate when Tony wins. He's too humble. I mean, on the air maybe.
It's a humbling thing being humble. Not everybody can do it. Tom can't, and and the thing about Tom, You're supposed to act like you've been there before, but of course he hasn't, so he doesn't know how. Me,
This just
I
reeks
am.
of humility right now.
Thank you. Uh,
It
I
just reeks.
I am probably the most humble person I know, but I have won a lot. I win a lot. I am winning a lot against Tom, and so I've been there before. I don't have to tell you how much I've won against him. I don't have to brag about it. I don't have to say I've won a lot against Tom because I've won a lot against Tom, and so it doesn't mean as much to me anymore. What is the super chat?
Contributor to the Hue. Favorite Buckeye for everyone.
Who's your favorite Buckeye of all time, Kevin?
We have to kind of, I guess it really comes down to criteria and everything else. I guess, we're just going to sit there and say Buckeye football player for one reason. The super chats are coming in fast and furious right now. So thank you to everybody. I probably would say that Eddie George. Yeah, I think that was kind of right around his time was right around the wheelhouse of where, and I didn't grow up watching Ohio State, so the '80s, the mid '80s, the early '80s really didn't resonate well with me. When I was accepted to Ohio State is really kind of when I got on board, and even with then, I was obviously at Ohio State during the Cooper years, so there was a lot of disappointment, and I think Eddie George was really one of the first players that kind of just turned that corner for me. So I'll say Eddie.
There's only one Buckeye football player in college that I had an autograph from. I didn't ask for it. My roommate got it, and that was
Buckeye guy.
Okay, sorry, two. I forgot.
Jim Bowman.
Three. But no, Eddie George is the only Buckeye I've ever had an autograph from. He is the only jersey. I've bought two college jerseys in my entire life. One was Eddie George's, and I bought that on the way to the Michigan game in '95. So it did not come home with me.
How'd that
Left it
turn out? Was it
somewhere.
good? I bet it was good.
No,
Was it
it
a fun
left
trip?
it somewhere like in the countryside on Route 23. And then also Ray Allen basketball jersey my freshman year of college because Ray Allen was awesome.
Did you have
And
a number 34 Yukon jersey?
UConn. Mhm.
Did it say Connecticut across the thing in the little arch? Because I had that exact jersey, which is more explainable for me because I actually grew up in Connecticut. I don't know
Mhm.
why you
It's because you
you,
guys
you
were a
were in
hive
early
mind a
on
long
Jesus
time
Jones
ago
growth.
before you knew each other.
Well, I like my jersey. Probably it was on sale, but I also really liked Ray Allen.
Mhm.
Back in the day, I liked college basketball quite a bit because there's a lot to like, unlike today. But like Eddie George for my generation, and he was Archie Griffin to the generation before, and like so he's probably like up there. Like Tom knows my favorite. I think
Antoine
like
Winfield.
Antoine Winfield is just amazing. Orlando Pace is the best Buckeye football player I've ever seen. But Eddie George is just like he's. I think he might be. I don't know if he's my favorite, but like I have representations of him more than any other player. And granted, just two examples. So some semblance of Antoine Winfield, Eddie George, because there was nobody like Eddie George. Because I was in school my freshman year in '94, my sophomore year in '95, when he rushed for 3,400 yards those 2 years. So that's and then that's significant to me. Tom, what about you?
You know, I was gonna say Orlando Pace just because I don't know that I've ever seen anyone as good at the thing that he does as Orlando Pace was, and probably still would be if they threw him out there. Like you feel like he could just like Orlando Pace could just like throw on some shoulder pads and go out there and just he'd be fine. Like no one's getting around Orlando Pace. So I guess he's my answer. My freshman year was 1996, so my first game was the Rice game. My first ever game in the Horseshoe was the Rice game, which if you go into the lobby of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, they still have up on the wall a picture of Orlando Pace from the Rice game. You can tell because he is just taking the soul of someone in a helmet that in black and white looks like an old Philadelphia Eagles helmet. So that was one where he blocked the dude like 60 yards downfield. So it was like, yep, all right, well, that's the greatest college football player I will ever see. Certainly, they won't give some dope from Florida the Heisman Trophy ahead of him. That would be ridiculous. And that's what Gary Barta was doing before he started taking the College Football Playoff Committee. He was giving the 1996 Heisman Trophy out. Good job, Gary Barta.
I think we've got 4 super chats in the queue right now. Hardy Jens, thanks for bringing the sexy back, boys.
There was a super chat from Diego earlier about how it's hard to convey sarcasm in super chats, but apparently I don't think it is that hard to convey sarcasm in super chats.
There it is. So now it's 2 of them. I'm scrolling down. Tom's Buffalo hat. I'm worn by a Mets fan. Feel bad for me, please.
Hey, this is from Yellowstone National Park, sir, and I like it. I can here. You want me here?
I'm just impressed that somebody went to the effort to create an account called Tom's Buffalo Hat. I mean, that's
I love it.
You have to be committed to the bit. The bit is one thing, but if you don't have the commitment, it's nothing.
I want to see a $40 super chat from Tom's New York Mets hat.
They'll spend it on super chats instead of free agents this offseason.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Great one from Stephen Short.
Where does Boyd Crowder rank on the pantheon of all-time TV villains? So we are. Kevin, did you watch Justified? You watched Justified.
I
right?
did not watch. I was just Googling who the hell is Boyd Crowder because I didn't watch Justified.
Boyd Crowder is definitely a villain. We can agree with. I mean, let's. He had some good moments, but certainly a villain. And we all know Walter White is a hero, so he does not qualify for this discussion. So what? Skylar number 1 and Boyd Crowder.
Walt Jr.
I'm doing a rewatch of Breaking Bad right now, and dear Lord, oh my God, she's so insufferable.
I'm going with Walt Jr. because I have a breakfast allergy. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm thinking through because it feels like this has to be like a really all-time show, and I don't know. I mean, like, who is the one villain on like The Wire? Like, is there one person who's like really the villain on The Wire? I mean, there's a bunch of them throughout the show. There's not like the one bad guy.
Because even like Omar is like an anti-hero. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, yeah, he's like, it's
so
hard.
We all cheer for heels in wrestling, so I mean, it's
I mean, like Stringer Bell or Omar or, I mean, I honestly Boyd Crowder is up there because Justified is one of those shows that like, if I just have a night where I'm just sitting around doing nothing and I'm like, I don't want to watch something new, I just want to turn on something that I don't have to think about. I will just like Google best Justified episodes and just throw on some random like season 2 episode, whatever, and just fall right back into it. And it is always all the good ones are Boyd Crowder episodes.
And it's amazing. Every episode has an amazing scene or some lines in it. And when he's in it, he is awesome. Al Swearingen from Deadwood is another good one, but like, offhand, you tell me Boyd Crowder, I'm like, I don't know that anybody is. I mean, Walter White, of course, is a villain, and that's my favorite show of all time. I think it's the best show of all time. And so those are probably my top 2. Hardy and Jim Harbaugh and everything. I don't know, Kevin, you got a top villain?
I'm going to jump into a movie just because I just watched it for the 700th time. And while I know The Patriot is not as good as Braveheart, don't tell my wife. She's like, oh, The Patriot. But Tavington, that Colonel Tavington in Patriot, I hate that guy. I know it's just an actor playing a role, but I would punch him right in the throat if I saw him because I hate that guy so much from that movie. So he did such a great job bringing out that type of feeling. And so, yeah, I want to throat punch him, but maybe in TV, maybe Skylar. I don't know. I mean, Walt Jr., as Tom said. Trying to think of what else. I'm sure there were probably a couple of people I hated in 24, but they all died within like 3 episodes, so that didn't really matter.
Oh man, Diego D with a super chat. Pick any Lannister. Now were you guys? Did you guys both watch Game of Thrones?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Let me jump up to that one, and then we got to get back to another one after that, and they're still coming in.
All right.
Pick any
Sorry,
Lannister.
that's
There's some good ones. There's some really good ones on there's some really good ones on um, Game of
Gus
Thrones.
Fring. Shoot.
Gus is a good. Oh, Gus is a good one. Oh man, Gus is a. I don't think I have a new answer, but Gus is a good one because Gus is the like it is manages to be really menacing without actually doing anything scary. He's just super calm. He's not ever screaming. He's not ever out of control. He's just, and even like the end of his character, and I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it. The end of his character is so good because it's just like, it's very like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
everything's fine. And now it's not fine. Like, it's just, he is low key a really good option. But yeah, there's some good ones from, King Joffrey on Game of
Yes.
Thrones is probably a good choice there. But he wasn't like through the whole series the way like Boyd Crowder was or whatever. So
And
that's where I think I struggle.
he's more of a little piece of crap than a great villain, but you do root against him terribly. Pick any Lannister. I'm going to go. It's between Tyrion and Tywin, but I'm probably going to go Tyrion just because how can you not like that guy?
I mean, he pays his debts.
That's
Well,
important.
that's everybody. That's every Lannister. Um, Tom, have you seen the super chat from Tom's Mets hat?
Here, let me
Well,
contributor to the Hue, thanking us. Let me scroll
thank
down.
you.
All right, we've already picked in Lannister. I'll say Jamie just because he's dreamy. I don't know.
And he has a
Some
golden hand.
Yes, he does.
Tom's Mets hat. Existence is pain. Now, first of all, you're asking yourself, how long can he do this? All night, baby. Hail the whale. Uh,
Tom's Whalers hat.
Existence is pain. So someone's got to start a Tom's Whalers hat account now. Existence is pain. Well, I just went from a team that is viewed as one of the more perpetually cursed in all of professional sports, the New York Mets, and now I've switched to a hat that is a team that no longer exists because that stupid jerk Carmanos decided, who likes hockey a lot better than people from the Northeast? People in North Carolina. People who think vinegar is a good base for a barbecue.
Whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa,
okay,
whoa,
sounds good.
whoa, 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 whoa. You had me at cheerwine being gross, but vinegar barbecue sauce is fine. It's good even. I like it, but cheerwine, gross. Carolina Hurricane, their logo looks like a swirling toilet. I'm not a fan of that either. So, I feel bad for your whalers.
Yeah, they took maybe the best logo in the history of sports with the W with the whale tail and took that away, and that's just, it's wrong. It is sad and wrong, and still somehow better than the Mets. At
Somebody's
least
wondering what the HE double hockey sticks we're talking about. Just so we can, we can continue talking about this, but we'll run through the rankings really quick for people who are getting in here. Week 2 of the college football playoff rankings are out. Starting at 25, Arkansas, Utah, UT San Antonio, San Diego State, Pittsburgh, Iowa, Purdue. Ohio State's next opponent comes in at 19. Wisconsin, Auburn, NC State, Ole Miss, BYU, Baylor, Wake, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State. Now Notre Dame at 9, Oklahoma at 8, Michigan State at 7, Michigan at 6, Cincinnati at 5, your Ohio State Buckeyes at 4, Oregon 3, Alabama 2, and UGA 1. A week from tonight, we will be back with the third edition of these. But now that we've covered what we're here for, I don't know what kind of craziness we might see. Kansas City barbecue. I'm not saying that Carolina barbecue is the best in the nation. I'm just saying it's really good.
Tom, I see your Cotton Bowl hat. I was looking for any hats I have within arm's reach. The only thing I have is my Cotton Bowl beer koozie and and another beer koozie because you got to have 2 beers or 2 drinks at a time.
So let's see if I can get that. My Rose Bowl Post-it notes. That's about all.
Mm,
That's about the only thing I can find here.
No, my hats are all over on the other side of the room. My ill-gotten SHI Stadium hat is on the other side of the room. Tom,
Yes, Marketax wants to know if I was a Whalers fan, do I just say nuts to the NHL or move on to rooting for the Islanders? I actually grew up in southwestern Connecticut, so I was actually pretty much equidistant from New York City and Hartford. I have been to more Whalers games than Rangers games, but grew up as a Rangers fan because it was impossible to get Rangers tickets. So I saw many a game in the Hartford Civic Center. And then when I moved out to Columbus, lucky me, hockey moved out to Columbus with me. So now, hey, go Blue Jackets.
JM, any opinions on the Sopranos prequel film? I thought it was a totally unforced error by David Chase. I've watched most of it. I haven't seen like the last 25 minutes of it, and which kind of tells you, I guess, what I thought about it. And there's like not a lot there in terms of like what's this movie about, what's going on, and not much happens. So I know I'm supposed to finish it, but I just haven't really felt like it. I don't know if either of you guys have watched it.
I watched it right before. I think right before we went to Rutgers. I think I power watched it then, and I thought, no, was it that trip? I know it was before I went on a road trip, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was too much fan service. I think they tried to answer too many origin stories in there, and that they didn't develop certain characters well enough, and it was okay. Would I watch it again? Probably not. Did I enjoy the fact that now I have a little backstory? Sure, but again, I'm not somebody that reads all the Star Wars books because I need to know. I need to know what this one planet that was mentioned in one scene is all about. I don't really care about anything that much. So it was okay.
You don't care about Coruscant?
I really don't. I really don't.
I would say El Camino
definitely
better than El Camino better than the Many Saints of Newark or whatever it's called.
You just like the dude with the dead eyes.
All right, I'm desperately going to change this subject right now to JM. Everybody knows Memphis, Tennessee has the best barbecue. I have no argument. Tony and I, coming back from this Cotton Bowl and the beer koozie Cotton Bowl that Tony was just holding up a moment ago, one of my favorite road trip stories with Tony. I clocked out several days in advance, like, hey, about the time we're going to leave, we're going to be passing through Memphis right about the time the Liberty Bowl is going on between Iowa State and I think Memphis. I think Memphis was in it that year. Mm-hmm. Hey, we can stop. We can probably talk our way into the stadium. It's like the fourth quarter. They're not watching to keep anyone from coming in the stadium. They're just watching the people coming out. Oh, hey, I left my keys in there. Sorry, I got to come out. Like, whatever. You can get into the stadium. And so we can go watch a little bit of football. We'll go eat hot dogs in the stadium, and that'll be our lunch, and then we'll go. And Tony, because he hates fun, said no. So instead, we just pulled off just some random exit to some random barbecue place. And it was absolutely delightful. It had smoked mac and cheese, had like the real caramelized sugar on the ribs. And oh man, that was dynamite. I was going back through my Instagram looking for something, from a million years ago, and forgot I had put a picture of that on. It was Crutchfield's Barbecue in Memphis, and I was like, oh man, that was just like out of nowhere, like top 10 meal of my life, just fantastic, and just a place where it's just like totally nondescript, nothing special, just fantastic. So yes, if there is a Cotton Bowl appearance for Ohio State and we happen to be driving through there, I wouldn't mind stopping at another place at some point on the way there.
I'll be flying over you guys at that point, going to real barbecue in Texas Hill Country.
Now the Pecan Lodge is good. It was a different meal. I mean, one was a giant sampler of meat. The other was just like a simple meal. But the place in Memphis is like, it's one of those places where some people just come in and just stay all day and just hang out and just like the old guys just sitting there. And it was very, very good. I do also like that part of our plan was, well, we could just get in the game. We'll show them our Cotton Bowl credentials and be like, we outrank you, whoever, Memphis security, get out of my way. Yes, Market X, the fatter the locals are, the better the food. And that
That's why I make good barbecue here.
I saw somebody ask the favorite player of the Urban Meyer era, and it's like when you cover them, they're favorites for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I Doug Rockhold mentioning
Mm-hmm.
Justin Hilliard. I always like Jerome Baker as well.
Evan
Uh,
Spencer,
Evan Spencer was always good. I don't I don't even I would have to see a list, and that was
Joshua Perry.
so long ago. Joshua Perry is always good, always well dressed, and um, so
Don't call him
I would
Josh. It's
almost
Joshua.
exactly. So I don't. Michael Thomas was always interesting to talk to, as you might imagine, as well.
And if you tweeted about him, he'd find it and let you know about it.
He sure would, and he was one of those guys that would search his name as well. So just make sure you, if you are critical, just be prepared because he's going to come back at you, and he still might. Although I don't know how much he's searching his name right now that he's not playing, because I imagine much of it is not very very good. Anything else, guys? Because I feel like we've veered
Yeah, we've lost
way off
100.
the
We've
course.
100 people have. Once we started talking about Skyler, they did exactly what I would have. I'm out of here.
So anything else you guys want to touch on before we go? I guess we can go.
Yep. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we
I
touched
think
on all the playoff stuff we needed to touch on. So thank you all for keeping us entertained for the last 40 minutes or so of barbecue chat.
Yeah, and definitely thank you for all of the contributions, the questions, the super chat. Thank you for just being here. Thank you for keeping these guys occupied while I was gone. Hardy Jens, I named my child Terry McLaurin, Johnny Dixon, Paris Campbell. That entire group just really, really good to talk to, really good to get to know. Terry McLaurin is maybe the best person I've ever covered at Ohio State.
yeah.
So, and I don't mind saying that, and I know other people agree. So I guess that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, if you are watching this right now, go ahead and hit like if you haven't already. That way, the YouTube people know that people are actually watching us, and it helps us out. So thank you for doing that. Also, if you want to listen to the audio version of Barbecue Chat, you can find us on any podcast platform. Just search Buckeye Weekly, and you'll find it there as well. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys later.